Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Hey, everybody. This is Leonard Duncan, and I'm the host of ATV Talk. ATV Talk presents the morning show. We're going to have some special guests with us today. We also need a special shout out to Elka Suspension for all the help that they give us to bring these shows to you. GBC Tires, best tire manufacturer on the planet, in my opinion. Go get some GBCs. Also, DBR Racing Products. You need to check those guys out. They do some awesome stuff too, some battery boxes and other things. So you can check that out and go ahead. Joe Tolle's trying to check in. He's got some sound issues. We had a couple little technical difficulties. Jacob Stevens, thank you so much for joining me. My host, Danny Duncan, is normally with me, and he is off on vacation with his family. And before we get started, Jacob, I want to announce to everybody, hey, if you're a dad and you're out there in the world of motorsports or anything, softball, baseball, whatever it is, happy Father's Day, and thank you for the support. Keep taking care of those kids. It's an amazing deal. Jacob, I think you're going to like this one, or this portion here. I'm going to just read it right from the listener. 867 Diesel commented on our last show and said, this is ATV talk, not dirt bike talk. The SX dirt bikes get tons of coverage and make millions. They don't need any more. The quads need coverage. So this is all quads today. We're not going to talk about anything else but quads, and that's just it. So let's get this thing rolling. How are you, Jacob?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing outstanding. I know Joe's having a little bit of trouble. He'll pop in here shortly. I know that guy knows more about the tech side of it than I'll ever know. So we're golden. Our first topic today is this week, the Quad Cross of Nations was picked for Team USA. I wanted to know, have you followed it? Do you know anything about it?
Yeah. The team's Bryce Ford, Chad Wienen, and Joel Hetrick. And, it's going to be a solid team. That was the team that was selected last year to go. And, they had a really good run. I think they each had, a good finish in their motos. And, a couple of them had issues, but they brought home the title last year. I think the team was picked because of the confidence of the team. And, I just think that it's a really solid team, and I think everybody supports them going over there and getting the win for us.
Yeah, I love it. I'm super excited about it. I've always been a huge fan of the Des Nations, and they do have a really solid team. You have 8-time champ Chad Wienen, you have multi-time champ, possibly 5-time in Joel Hetrick. And then Bryce Ford had made a huge swing forward last year and was in the picking position for this year as well. I mean, he's second in points right now. So that put him right into the deal. One of the things that I wanted to ask you is, every year that I've seen this, or do you know much of how they pick it, and why is every year there a controversy?
I think the biggest controversy is, there's a lot of riders in the class that are capable of competing, obviously. You have your battle for the top three. I mean, when this first started, it was always a Joel Hetrick, Chad Wienen, and Thomas Brown show. And, nobody could really contend with Thomas on the podium. And, they always just use the top three in points. And, I know there was a little controversy this year because of Chad's injury that he had. He lost some points. He wasn't sitting in third. And, I can understand how it's difficult to pull Chad away from that position just because of an injury. We all know he's an 8-time champ, and, he's one of the best to ever ride a four-wheeler. And, the controversy behind it, with, other riders being contenders or being capable to go over there and still provide us, great competition and wins. I think it's just kind of, the decision at the end of the day, if you're one of those top contending riders and you don't get picked, it's kind of a shot in the back. I mean, for me, I think it would, light a fire under some of these guys' butts and get them to work a little harder. And, somebody like Jeffrey or Brandon Hogue or, even a Max Lindquist or a Wesley Wolf or, any of these guys are fully capable of going over there and competing for our country. But, at the end of the day, they make their picks for their reasons, and, we have to support that if, we want to support the team.
Well, exactly. Mark Baldwin is no slouch. He's ran the show every time. We've had the same AMA rep every time. They know how this process works. They have it down. I just wish that the industry itself, I don't care if you're racing motocross, woods, TT, ice racing, whatever. We're a small world. We need to get together and promote everything we do here in the States or abroad. So one of the things that we look at, in 2018, I think Joel had a commitment and couldn't go. So it was Thomas Brown and Rastrelli got to go, and they won in 18 as well. So Rastrelli is very capable. I think that all the other riders that you listed are super capable as well. I don't know what this link is here, that UCAM 6, please start your UCAM. But something else is going on. We'll figure it out. Joe may text me and tell me what's up.
He probably just has his camera.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
Hey, the fun of going live. Apparently the phone works great for going live on Instagram, but every time I would try to log on, it would not give me any audio. I couldn't hear you guys. You guys probably heard me dropping F-bombs in the background. Sorry. But I'm here in voice only, but you don't get to look at me. Sorry.
Okay. So, well, we can deal with that, right? Yep.
Keep your light cash in your pocket.
Valeria said you're good, Joe. She's going to send you a bill. Just be ready. Okay.
Yes, I apologize.
On top of that.
So we were just talking about the Quad Cross of Nations. And we were talking about, why doesn't the industry just jump in and support it instead of having to have a little controversy every year? I mean, we're going over there to compete against the world. I think we have the best three. And I'm not saying anything negative about Hogue or Janusa or Rastrelli, any of the other guys. They're all fast. They could all go over there and compete. I just want unity is what I want.
Well, I heard yesterday, the first I ever heard about this was yesterday. I guess my rider, Evan Hart. So we were out shooting a couple projects and he mentioned this to me. He said, yeah, there's some stink online because they normally take top 3 in points and this year they didn't. So apparently, I guess Weenan, who moved to 3rd yesterday, was chosen for the team before he moved into 3rd place in points. And obviously, who got the boot on that? Was it Rastrelli?
Well,
yeah, it was Rastrelli.
Yeah, it was Rastrelli. And I don't know, you can't necessarily say it was a boot because at the end of the day, when the racing was all over yesterday, Chad had a 7-point lead over Rastrelli. He's been consistently moving through the field, since he came back from his injury. He only missed one moto. If he wouldn't have missed that moto, yes, I know, woulda, shoulda, coulda. He'd probably be maybe 2nd in points. Who knows? But Bryce is holding his own, and they are the last year's team that won. So should we have controversy, or should we just all get together and say, hooray, let's go Team USA?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we have to root for our country. We have to root for our team. And then again, we don't know what went on behind the scenes. Did Rastrelli tell them he didn't have the budget to make the trip across the pond? Or, so there's a lot we don't know what's going on. I don't assume it's the worst. Obviously, I think the people who did the picking for the team want us to win.
Yes,
not-
I think that is 100% it, that they wanted to do it. Yes, ma'am.
Can I add something?
Yeah, fire away, Valeria.
I mean, I don't know that much about this event, but I guess that it is only 3 spots.
Mhm.
So I'm guessing, it's difficult to choose between everybody, but if they chose 3 that are very capable, then that's still good, right?
Yes. Yes, I agree. What she's basically saying is they picked 3 very capable people. We've dominated for 5 years out of the last 6. I'm pretty much thinking that we have a good chance. That brings me to our next topic. Can they win again? I mean, real. Let's hear your opinion. Joe, you go ahead and start us off.
Well, I don't know. I don't honestly follow motocross in Europe as much as I do over here. I know in the 2-wheeled segment, we tend to do very well, and we have for decades, most of the years. Yeah, I think we'll win. I mean, hey, sport ATVs, that's our sport. That started in America. As far as I know, we made it big. It's ours. We're the team to beat every year. So I would be interested to see the Europeans step it up, especially if that means we start seeing more small build European manufacturers like we used to see, back in the day. I remember trying to remember the name of the company, used to take KTM engines and put them in total custom chassis over in Europe. You saw those guys out in the 90s. Trying to remember the name of the company, but I hope that hopefully this results in more European manufacturing. I'm looking for small builders to step in and start supplying some sport quads, since the Japanese appear to have their head in the sand. So
we will get into that.
Want America to win, but good luck to Europe.
We'll get into that topic here in a little bit. Jacob, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I genuinely, at the end of the day, I'm gonna root for our team. Some of my good friends on that team I know personally, so I'm rooting for them. I genuinely think that every single one of them is capable for making it a blowout and winning every race. But obviously over the last couple of years of going, the European teams have been getting better. We see Kevin Saar over here in the US. He was a part of a team last year that got second place, and he's a good rider. They had a solid team, and it just seems like these teams they've been getting better since the Des Nations has gotten a little bit bigger over the last few years. And I'm glad to see that they're finding other riders in this world that are capable of competing with our best riders. So I think it's just going to keep getting better. I hope to see some new names out there, some new faces, and I don't want them to just make it a blowout. I want them to go over there and battle and make it entertaining, and I want them to work for it, and like I said, I think they're fully capable of taking it home. But these riders, they just keep getting better and better. So we're just gonna have to wait and see.
I agree. I'm agreeing with most everything you guys have said. What we forgot to do is we forgot to explain exactly what the Quad Cross of Nations is and how the race really works. So what happens is all the countries that want to participate pick their 3 best riders. Generally, some company or countries do it total points based. Others have their own select systems, and we don't contradict them in any way, shape, or form. The one thing that is different about everybody else than the United States is we are production based only. So our machines are production based. So the only machines that can go are either the Honda 450R, that we raced over here. We did take a hybrid over there one year with Joel because it's legal. But we're taking production machines. They're running production machines and hybrids. But how the race works is all the countries come together at a chosen location. This year it's going to be in Italy. They have qualifying races where they break down a front row start, a second row start with your 1 and 3 rider. Then the next start will be between your maybe 2 and 3 rider, staggering front row start, second row start. I know that's weird on a motocross to have a second row, but they do that. How everybody qualifies gives you your race order and where you start. And your gate picks, so on and so forth, which we're all semi-familiar with that. And then they run 3 races with a front row and a second row, and you divide your team up with how you want your riders to perform. Let's say you want your number 3 to run the first moto on the front line. So that gives you your number 1 on the front line in your second race. However it breaks down, the team with the lowest score wins. So that means they combine all 6 of your motos. The lowest team, they kick out 1 moto, so that they take your 5 lowest numbers, and that's what gives you your winning score. I do not think the USA has ever scored. They may have scored more than 7 points, but I'm not sure. I mean, they've had Thomas Brown break a chain one time, so that eliminated it. Chad Weenan lost a carrier that eliminated him one time. So it's been pretty positive. So that's how the race breaks down. And last year it was Ireland and France on the podium. I don't believe Saar was on the podium last year.
Was he not? I think, you know what, I saw he got second behind Bryce in the 1 moto, I think.
Yep, he freaking was fast.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, usually you see a lot of our faces, you know, on the podiums in each moto, and you know, at the end of the day, you know, I just think those European riders have been getting faster, or maybe they've found more riders that you know, weren't a part of these series that are just a little bit better, and I think these riders are just getting faster. So, you know, I'm excited to see them succeed, or you know, bring out some more powerhouse riders from overseas.
I worry about complacency is what I worry about. You know?
Yeah.
I don't want somebody to relax and not put forth maybe the effort, or, you know, finish the machine the way they're supposed to, or whatever, and causes some issues. There's great people that go over there and work on these machines. So I don't want to, you know, I'm not insinuating that anybody would not do their best job, but you know, you've won 5 out of 6, and the only reason you didn't win the 6th one is because of COVID, you know, and we didn't go. So
You never know, though.
yeah, you never do know. You never do. That's why we race the race. We're going to transition to our second topic, and that's TT racing. This is a form of riding that's done on a smoother surface. There are some jumps in it. They run special tires with special setup machines. And these young men and ladies that race this are super, super talented. I don't know what your involvement in TT is, Jacob, but I really enjoyed it when I got to participate in it.
Yeah, no, I've never personally actually gotten to ride TT. I did get the privilege of riding one of my friend's TT quads on a circle track, and you know, I can say for myself that it is a, you know, night and day difference from, you know, racing a motocross quad or even an off-road quad or anything like that. You know, just how the bike's set up and how everything feels, and you know, how just it rides so much differently than what I think a lot of us are used to when we ride quads. And you know, I got to give my hats off to all those guys that ride those things as fast as they do. You know, I knew, you know, Tim Detling, he had switched from motocross to TT a while back, or you know, he raced both series, and you know, he's one of those guys that, you know, he will respect it all, and you know, he did well. But I think a lot of these guys, even, you know, at the event that we had this past weekend at Budds Creek, a lot of them, I think, were surprised at how much more difficult they thought it was than it actually, you know, than they were expecting it was going to be.
Yeah, I don't think people understand how talented you need to be to make a TT bike work.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, I mean, it's a completely different setup with how they have their front ends and how low the quads are, and the suspension alone is just, it's completely different than what we do for motocross and off-road. So it's definitely a completely separate set of knowledge that you need to have to go out and succeed in TT.
Right. And you're looking at the style of tracks that they race on. It's generally a dirt track stadium environment. where some surfaces have bank turns. They usually use a big portion of the big, turns 1 and 2, which is a big giant sweeper with a sharp left-hander, into the infield, and they may have some. TT used to have these big, nice roller jumps where they were easy. Now they've got more kickers in them, so it's taking more talent with better suspension setups, tire combinations, whether it's hot, whether it's dry, whether it's moist. I mean, the knowledge level that these guys have I think is underrated.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been amazed by guys like, Greg Baker and Shane Hitt, and I mean, Charlie Shepard. Charlie Shepard was one of the phenomenal guys that could take a machine that wasn't exactly set up for him and still go very, very fast. Shane Hitt was a master of changing components to get the results that he wanted. I mean, a guy had 11 pair of front shocks, dude. I'm an 11 pair of front shocks.
Yeah.
Could you imagine having 11 pair of motocross shocks?
I couldn't actually. That's a little insane to actually think about. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's totally. They had different swing arm lengths. There's all kinds of different things that they talked about. With hollow axles, and this is in the old days. I don't know what they do now. I'm trying to get more information from some of these guys, but hollow axles, and then they would put shot peen in the swing arms to add weight because they're lightening the machine up so that they can get the maximum amount of speed out of it for the horsepower, and then they're adding weight in the swing arm to get the traction they need to get it to come out of the turns. Back in the 80s and early 90s, they didn't have the same technology that they do now. And I think that with the style of swing arms, with the four strokes get better straight ahead drive. We're going to be talking about that a little later on in the show as well. So, I mean, and you're using all your modern day sport quads. I believe they have a hybrid class. I don't know what I was trying to get more information of how they broke the classes down before we started this, but I couldn't find the exact information I was looking for. Maybe it's because I can't Google search very well. But they have your pro class, your pro-am classes. They have multiples of those. I think they even have an unlimited pro class, where that's where the hybrids or the two strokes or anything that you really want to bring races, and the fastest guy wins. I believe one of the Rath boys won on an LT 500 last year at one point, in one of those classes. So it's a lot of fun. We should explore the TT racing more, just because it's another form of sporting in the ATV world that I don't think is getting proper coverage. Speaking of coverage, let's shift gears, Jacob, and let's talk about this next issue that what is the reluctancy? And since you're a professional racer, this is going to fall right on you. And I know that Joe's probably going to come back in here at some point and get involved in this because he has a say in it as well. Why the reluctancy for riders to promote themselves or the series they race? What's the holdup?
I don't know. I'm not the best at, keeping up with, daily posts or, stuff like that. I'm really big on race reports. I usually make 1 or 2 posts in between rounds, a few over the break. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's just laziness at the end of the day, or some people just don't think that the networking side of things on social media and the following is as important as it is to just go out and ride. I know a few riders that just don't think that social media is important to keep up with or make posts about, and that's at the end of the day, unfortunately, it's just opinion, and that might affect their sponsors at some point in their career. But yeah,
so since you're a professional racer, when somebody sponsors you, what does that mean?
That means they're helping you go make make your program work better.
So in turn, what are you supposed to do?
Return that favor by publicizing them and, sharing their product, selling their product, being a face for the company.
Right. So that brings me back to the original question. I know that in our society today, everybody thinks that they can get something for free.
Mm-hmm.
It's not free. It's
Yeah.
coming out of somebody's pocket. So when I call and ask you to come on the show and talk about you, that's self-promotion. And at the exact same time, you're promoting your sponsors, because the photos that are going to get posted, the things you talk about are going to be posted. And this is massively important for the growth of your sponsors, but your personal brand.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a huge disconnect in all forms of racing. And trust me, I reach out and try to contact riders and from all different brands of motorsports. This isn't just an ATV problem. This is a problem that is not in your major brand racing. So I think that in some of your more high dollar sports, they're contracting these people to do these things. You have to go so many public appearances, which, if I was going to sign a contract with you, I'd do the same thing. Hey, you have to make these appearances. You have to run these people down. Hey, I need to be on your show. Hey, I need to do this. Hey, I need to do that, and make it mandatory. And I'm not necessarily saying social media. You have magazine articles, newspaper articles in your local at home. When you go to the local track, how are you presenting yourself to the youth riders and the people that are there? Because this is so important. And I think that we've lost track of what it is. And I know that I've had this conversation on the show before, and I know that some people get a little tired of this topic, but I'm trying to bring a point across, and I don't think it's catching on the way I would assume that it should.
Right.
Lenny,
Right.
if I can jump
Yeah,
back
go
in
ahead.
here.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think looking at TT as a whole, years ago, 15, 20 years ago, they split out the motocross series from the TT series. So it used to be all the guys who were racing TT, back in the day, Shane Hitt, Tim Farr, all those guys. They, even as TT riders, if they were a TT specialist, they were still sort of packaged with the motocross series. So there was more opportunity for publicity from the magazines. Podcasts obviously weren't a thing back then. It was mostly, website and magazine coverage at that point. So those guys, at least in the media that there was, they had more of a voice. It seems like once the promoters group split TT out from motocross, those guys kind of got put in a bubble. And then it went from, and Lenny, please, either one of you guys jump in and correct me if I say anything wrong here, but it used to still be an AMA TT series for a while, and then Need It sort of surpassed them. And I think the AMA series, in a way, Need It took over as sort of the premier TT series in the country. And they've grown as far as like classes, because they have 3-wheeler classes at Ashtabula this year. They're going to have a stock TRX 90 class for grown-ups. So dudes, hey, if you got an old stock TRX 90, get it out, dust it off. You can go race it. You don't have to modify it. Matter of fact, make sure it's stock, or maybe you can't race it. I don't know the rules for all the classes, but for the sponsorship of it, I think what's happening to these guys to a degree is their sport's kind of in a bubble, and there's not a big voice, a magazine, podcasts that are really highlighting TT. Like, where can I go watch Need It? Do they put their races on the internet for people to go watch, even the pro class? So I think when you're in a sport that's in a bubble, like lawnmower racing, it's like, where's your outlet? So how do you feel like, yeah, you love TT racing, you love your ATV, but you feel like you're in this little niche sport that doesn't get much volume. And instead of them adding their voice to coverage that's already out there, it's sort of like they're becoming the voice for their own sport. And that's a problem unto itself, where it's like they don't feel like the sport's maybe a lot bigger than them. So maybe that's shutting them down. And another thing is, I think TT racing, whether I'm sure there are young guys in it, you know, at the top of the sport, I think you've got a lot of people that race TT that are older, like the three-wheeler crowd, things like that. Guys that just dust their bike off and like to go race it. So if their demographic is older, these are people that aren't as, you know, they didn't grow up with a phone in their hand that's a smartphone where they post about everything they do in their life all the time. I know that as a guy in my 40s, even though I'm a journalist, it's difficult when I'm done making a video to go make all these social media posts about everything else I'm doing. It's like, so I think that's part of the problem. Their sport's not getting enough publicity, and they maybe don't have the mindset to take it over and run with it.
You know, I agree with a lot of the points here, but here's the gist. If you want your sport to grow and not fade away into the nether regions of you know, the nothingness, promote yourself, reach out to these people. You know, companies like mine and shows like mine are willing to promote you for free. I'm not asking for anything but your time. I'm going to put you on. I'm going to talk to you about who you are, what you do. You're going to be able to show your sponsors. We're going to put photos out there, and we're going to present it on social media for you. All you have to do is sit down in the chair and talk.
Yeah,
I agree.
no, I think that's a good point. You know, I think there are riders out there that, like I said before, just don't take it seriously. And, you know, I think that, you know, making a name for yourself off the track is just as important as it is to put the work in and make a name for yourself on the track. So, yeah, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, you know, each individual rider personally promoting themselves rather than the series as a whole. You know, at the end of the day, I think the series as a whole could use a little bit better promotion, but I understand what Joe was saying about the bubble. You know, even for a series like I race now, the work series, you know, before I moved out here or even had the thought of racing this series, you know, the only person I knew that was racing this series was Bo Barron, and the only reason I knew that was because I started out here and I knew him before I left. So, you know, I didn't know who Travis Damon was. I didn't know who, you know, Braxton Gross was, or Cody Sanford, or Kenny Sanford, or, you know, any of these guys, Logan Huff. I had no clue who these people were. And, you know, at the end of the day, do you put that on those riders? Because, you know, now that I follow them and now that I'm friends with all of them, I see all their posts and I see how much they post and I see all those things. But before I followed them, you know, I didn't know anything about the work series. So do you
That's a
put
great
that on the
point.
rider, or do you put that on the series at the end of the day?
I think you put it on both, but you know, let's just use works, and you can use some of the TT stuff that I've seen, and you can see ATV motocross. They're trying to promote to a point. I don't think they use it as a professional. I mean, I don't think they have somebody professionally trying to do it like an advertising setup. Maybe they don't post enough. Maybe they're not hitting the right demographic. I don't know. I think we all need to work harder at it. I think I need to work harder at it. I think you need to work harder at it. I know Joe works hard at it. I know everyone I tell Joe he's not working hard because I know the guy is always doing something. That being said, you know, when I was telling people that they need to reach out more, I'm not trying to sound like you have to do these things. I'm just, if you want your sport to grow, you have to change what you're doing. You know, I mean, it's just insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. That's all I'm saying. That's what I meant.
No,
So,
yeah, and it's 100% true at the end of the day that, you know, the ATV motocross, you know, like in the beginning of the show, that guy had pointed out that this is, you know, ATV talk. And, you know, as much as I love talking about dirt bikes and, you know, love talking about other sports and all those things, At the end of the day, the ATV world is the one that's hurting in the motorsports industry, and there's nobody better to help us out than ourselves at the end of the day. So I think each and every individual rider needs to own up to a little bit of that responsibility that they sit back and they complain that ATVs are slowly fading away. Better to help get these series names out there, spread the word, and help promote more, and at least say that you tried to bring it back to where it was one day.
Take care of your series, take care of your sponsors,
Yeah,
and move on, and then we'll grow. So I want to get into a age-old argument that started back in the 70s. 2 strokes versus 4 strokes. I know Joe has an opinion of the 2 strokes. I know Joe has an opinion of the 4 strokes. Jacob, I don't know if you've ridden a 2-stroke in the modern day era because you're too young to have been around for that. No offense.
That's all an untaken. I've never actually gotten a chance to ride a 2-stroke before. Not even on minis. I started a little too late to even ride 2-stroke minis. So it's interesting for me to think about it. Obviously the minis, the 2-strokes are where it's at. You can't deny that. The super minis, the CVTs, even in the dirt bike world, the minis are all 2-strokes. And personally, I don't know why that reason is. I don't know if I don't know if you have an answer on why only the mini quads are 2-strokes anymore, and the new age, big bikes are all 4-stroke. Obviously, as time has gone on, the 2-strokes in the big bike industry has, been pushed away, and I think for that reason of the production quads and the 4-strokes have just gotten better and better as the years have gone on, and I can think that was just the new age of big quad racing.
To a point, I don't know how to answer your question about the minis. Probably because the 4-stroke engine technology hasn't shrank down there.
Well,
but I'm being.
I guess is it size of engine that can fit in a frame? Would that be
I think it's because with the engine technology, with the 4-strokes, how it's changed, they can make smaller, lighter, faster stuff now that makes tons of power. I don't know why they haven't shrank it down to the smaller CC engines. And maybe it's because the manufacturers haven't pushed it. They're making small motors in 2-stroke form for other reasons that we're adapting these engines to the ATVs. That's what I'm getting at.
I think if I can jump in here with this, I think
Joe, can you hold that thought for 1 second? I'm getting smacked over here from the side that Valeria's got a question and wants to know something.
What is the difference between a 2-stroke and a 4-stroke? And can you explain what that is to the people that don't know, please?
Okay. We're going to let Joe talk and then I'll explain that. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I could even do both, but starting with why a 4-stroke, a 2-stroke engine basically fires every time the piston comes to the top of the cylinder stroke. So it goes to the bottom, it comes to the top, it fires. It goes to the bottom, it comes to the top, it fires. On a 4-stroke engine, so every 2 strokes in a 2-stroke, it fires down 1, up 2, fire. In a 4-stroke engine, it goes down, the piston comes up, cylinder's charged with fuel, piston goes down, comes back up, fires. So every 4 movements of the piston fires in a 4-stroke engine, hence the difference between 2-stroke and 4-stroke. I think, and I'm sure Lenny can opine on that a little bit more. The thing with the 2-stroke versus the 4-stroke in the modern era, and why you're not seeing more 4-strokes, I think in the mini quads, comes down to a couple things. One, you don't see 2-strokes in the big bikes because in a lot of ATV guys, we look at the dirt bikes and we're like, KTM makes all these great 2-strokes. Yamaha still makes these great 2-strokes, and Yamaha builds sport quads. Why won't they give us a 2-stroke? I've had this conversation with them. And the reason they don't give us a 2-stroke is when it comes to building vehicles, dirt bikes have different classifications of EPA compliance. You have green sticker, which allows you to run in the dunes and public land pretty much around the country. Of course, communist China or communist California has its own, China, California, whatever, has its own set of rules for the environment, but it's pretty difficult. You can't build a two-stroke ATV basically and meet emissions these days because there's no red sticker. Green stickers, public land. Red stickers more like for competition use. There is no, from the way it was explained to me by a guy at Yamaha about a decade ago, there is no red sticker classification for ATVs. Therefore, they can't just be like, hey, government, two-stroke, we're just going to run it on private land and this and that and the other. So that was the way that was explained to me, and why we don't see big two-strokes anymore on quads, because we don't have the same classifications as the dirt bikes. And when you've got all the manufacturers building dirt bikes and obviously care about them, but one manufacturer building sport quads that obviously still cares about them, you just don't have enough voice and momentum to go in to the bureaucrats and be like, look, we want a red sticker, classification for our quads the same way we have for dirt bikes. Now with the mini quads, I think the reason we haven't seen the four-stroke technology trickle down to that, a lot of it is price point. I think the reason that the mini quad manufacturers are getting away with still producing two strokes is because, well, I haven't dug into it. Here's believing that these things are being imported as toys. They're not being imported as a motor vehicle, this, that, and the other. So they're probably not coming in under the same classification that you see Yamaha and the Japanese manufacturers producing motorsports vehicles as. And I think that's how these manufacturers are still getting away with doing two-stroke mini quads, because they're not classified the same for some reason. I would have to dig into it more with DRR to find out. And then the other thing besides that is just cost, because traditionally, I think, what was it, Lenny, back in the day, they said a two-stroke versus a four-stroke with old four-stroke technology made about 50% more power per cc. Is that correct?
There's vague calculations, but yeah, we could go off of that just, for grins and giggles sake.
So, the two-stroke youth quads, the Apexes and the DRRs, the price on those continues to go up. And now all of a sudden, let's just say that DRR, let's say their 90 is, what is it now? $6,000 for a 50, $5,000 for a 50 or something like that. Now all of a sudden, if they want to make that a four-stroke engine, they got to tool up, they got to develop the engine, they got to build it. It has way more moving parts. You just added $1,500 to the cost of that quad. And then when rebuild time comes around, it's going to cost a lot more to rebuild it. And if you're building a kid's quad with a small four-stroke engine, it's going to turn a lot more RPMs. It's going to be a lot more volatile. Whereas if you build a 450 four-stroke, you got a lot more displacement. It doesn't have to be as volatile to make good power. So I think that's the reason that two strokes have kind of stuck around in the minis, because what the performance for the dollar, it just doesn't really make sense to make the switch if they're avoiding pressure from the government.
I agree with most of what you said. The two strokes, small bore two-stroke engines coming in a different classification for different things, and then they're converting them into mini quads for these kids. These companies are doing that, and it's great. And to switch it to four-stroke, yeah, you're going to add some cost. You're going to add some other issues with changing suspension, so on and so forth. But that's a good breakdown and a good start for your roll into the next question I'm going to ask you guys is, what do you prefer? And Jacob, I already know that this is going to exclude you because you're going to give me a four-stroke answer right off because you haven't spent time on a two-stroke. But what do you prefer, the four-stroke or the two-stroke?
I'll let Joe take over this one first because my answer is just going to be 4-stroke based off of the fact that I've never raced a 2-stroke before.
You need to get with the times, and maybe you should go back a little bit and ride some of these two strokes so that you know how awesome they truly are.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember actually, good friend of mine back east, Dylan Tremelin, he had built one, and I never got to ride it. But the thing was sweet. They look sweet, they sound sweet, and even when he was out there riding it, it looked cool. So yeah, hopefully I'll get the opportunity to ride one day.
I hope you do. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I think when it comes to just if you're gonna race, if you want to go racing and you want to win, 4-strokes have been proven to be, I wouldn't say easier because winning's never easy, but you get more power to the ground. They get the power to the ground better. The modern 4-strokes do. They're not wheel spinning as much. There's a lot of advantages there. For the racer. Now, is it necessarily better for the sport with the added cost? And especially when you see Honda discontinuing parts in the 450R, which is why that machine's becoming less and less prevalent in competition because, parts availability and keeping a 4-stroke together and finding all the parts for it is a little bit more complex than a 2-stroke. Which is why, look how long the 250R served the racing community after its last year of manufacturing in '89. Those bikes were still being raced pretty heavily up to around 2000 before the hybrids really started kicking in. And that's great. And I think for the recreational guy who, I'm a big fan of the Raptor 700. It's a big 4-stroke, but a Raptor 700 kind of has old school 4-stroke performance. The modern 450s, racers probably wouldn't agree. I jump on a modern 450 4-stroke, whether it's a Honda or it's a Yamaha. Most of the 450s that were ever made feel really jittery off the bottom. And it's like riding a thoroughbred horse. You want to just plunk along the trail. And this horse is like, come on, dude, open me up. Let's go. And so modern 4-strokes typically like to be ridden hard. The 450s, there were a few exceptions. The KFX, you could lug it. The 400EX is an old school engine. But 2-strokes, which obviously I have a fondness for. 2-strokes are great because they make great budget machines, and they're great to learn to work on because they're simplistic for the young guy who's getting into the sport and has to work on his own stuff. Valves and cams and cam chains and all that stuff are just complicate the process for a guy who's trying to keep his bike together, where it's like, oh, I blew up my 250R. I got to put a piston and a ring in it. I think each bike has its place. I like the affordability of the ownership of a 2-stroke. As a former Banshee guy, there's nothing more thrilling than a 2-stroke. Not necessarily the most efficient, and that's why they don't dominate racing anymore. But look how many guys are still buying 250Rs. People want that simplistic rip. They want to smell the bean oil. They want to smell the race gas. So as a guy who's fortunately been in it for 30 years, there's some satisfaction from the 2-strokes that's missing.
Well, when I was a little kid, yes, I was little one time. That was a long time ago. I was blessed to ride a 2-stroke, little Honda 50. And we ran bean oil in it. And, I love that smell. I miss it so much. Your 4-stroke, 2-stroke argument is never going to be solved. There's so many guys out there that love the 2-stroke and so many out there that love the 4-stroke. And personally, as I get older, I like the 4-stroke roll-on power. But there's always that thrill of that snap of the 2-stroke that jerks your head back, straightens your arms, and gives you that little sensation. Oh shit, what's going to happen next? Excuse my language. And Joe, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I rode a Banshee. Yeah, it was all or nothing, more or less. Yeah, it was like riding a big 125 with a whole lot more horsepower.
Right.
So, and 2-strokes, 4-strokes are both good. I have a blaster parked right next to my Raptor. So, I'd say don't pick one or the other, get one of each, and you'll be happy.
I think at the end of the day, it all depends on, what your intentions on doing with the four-wheeler it is, and if your goal is to race at a competitive big bike level, obviously you're gonna have to just go the route of racing a four-stroke to be competitive. But, obviously, like we said about the minis, you want to be competitive, you got to ride a two-stroke. And even in the super mini realm of ATV motocross, there was a few people that had run the four-stroke 150s versus the 85s, and competed on them. So, yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it all depends on what you're going to do on the quad.
Totally. There was one of our other categories that we're going to talk about. I'm going to skip over because we're running out of time. I really wanted your opinion of this from both of you guys. As our sport grows, and when we brought in the Quad Cross of Nations and exposed other countries to the US's ability to build what I would consider superior machines. Yes, we went to Rendezvous back in the day, and there were other races that we went to and raced and showed our wares and our level and our abilities. You have 7-time champ Doug Eichner with Rendezvous. This was all done back in the day. It's not the same race anymore because it's four-stroke, but now you have an influx of European riders and riders from other countries coming here to embrace their skill set. What's your opinion on this? And do you embrace it? Do you not embrace it? And give me some reasons why. Joe, I'm going to start with you because I already know Jacob's going to get a little more deep involved because it directly affects him.
So your question is, how do we feel about the Europeans coming over to race and train in America?
Basically riders from all countries.
I think it's great. Obviously born and raised American, I've done martial arts for 30 years and we didn't invent those. My teacher's teacher is Asian, so if I wanted to get better at martial arts, well, most of the leaders were Asian, and a lot of people travel to Asia to practice because that's the source. That's where it grew up. That's where it was most advanced. Or you go to Brazil to train in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You go, if you want to be the best and you want to improve, then you need to be where the best riders are, or the best whatever sport you're in. So I think the Europeans coming across the pond to, work on their skill set, get exposed to American racing, enjoy our culture. I think it's great, top to bottom.
I totally agree with that. Jacob, what do you think? Because in your profession, being a professional racer, whether you're on the East Coast racing motocross or on the West Coast racing works, it directly affects you because these riders come and participate in your class.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. Just like Joe said, I think that at the end of the day, the US has a very superior series of, four-wheeler racing. And a lot of people come here to race four-wheelers, whether it be TT Nationals, Works, GNCC, any of those series. There are a lot of people that have come here with the goal of racing these series. And me personally, getting the chance to know a few of these riders and race against a few of these riders, I think it's good. I'm never gonna, be upset with some more competition coming over, from anywhere, whether they, come over here and blow us all out of water. It's just gonna make us work harder. And, if they come over here and they don't blow us out of the water, it gives them a chance to, better their skill and give us some better entertaining racings. Because, at the end of the day, in my opinion, the better the entertainment is on the racing side, the more fans and publicity and all of those things that we can manipulate to pull people more in for spectation wise. But I think it's great. I knew actually a good friend of mine, Vitek. He was from Poland, and I got the opportunity to stay and ride with him with Wesley Wolf, and You know, he was a good friend of mine, and I don't know if he's ever going to come back based off of, you know, his financial situation, but I know it was one of the best years of his life. In 2020 he was here, or 21 he was here. And yeah, you know, if it's going to make or break these people's, you know, dream, you know, I'm fully supportive of it.
I am too. I think the more the merrier. Let's grow the sport worldwide instead of just nationally. And if we can give back some of our knowledge to them as they take it over and incorporate it into their programs and in their style of racing, it's only going to make the quad cross of nations better. It's only going to make all the series better, and it's going to make the sport better. And we want to grow the sport and bring more people in.
Yeah.
This next topic, because we are out of time, I don't have more time to talk about that. I hate to say that. I'd like to talk all day, but it's just not going to work
You
out.
can do a follow-up episode.
Well, we'll bring this up again. This last thing for the listeners, I want you to comment in the comment section, please. But I'm going to put Joe and Jacob on the spot here. The one thing I want you to take in mind when you're answering this question is don't lock in on a rider that has ridden one series or one era of time. Look at the riders that have done multiple different things before you make your pick. There's biases, I get it, but the greatest ATV racer of all time is the question. And yes, I already see Jacob's face. He's like, oh boy. It's a loaded question because there's arguments that you see online about it. There's arguments you see in race shops with professionals that have been doing it for 40 or 50 years, and they're arguing back and forth. Remember, there are great racers that did not win a motocross championship. There are great racers that have run multiple motocross championships, but that's all they ever did. So I'm going to turn this over to you first, Jacob, because I saw your eyes get the size of silver dollars, and I don't think you really want to answer this. So we're going to start with you, and then we'll let Joe, because he's a little more windy.
Wow, that is a very loaded question, and to be completely honest with you, I don't know that I have an answer of one specific rider, because I think there's so many different riders that have succeeded in different ways that make them so legendary. You know, you have your Gary Denton, you have your Doug Gus, you know, your Travis Spaders, your Chad Wienans, your Joel Hetricks, your Bo Barons. I mean, how do you separate these riders and you know, pick one, because each and every single one of them have their own separate accomplishments, and I don't know. I don't think that I personally could make that decision on just one rider. I think that there's, you know, all those riders I just named are, you know, the Hall of Famers in our sport, and yeah, the each, I mean, you have Chad Wienen that's won 8, Gary Denton's won 8 national championships motocross wise. You have your Walker Fowlers that's outstanding in the woods. Your Bo Baron that's won 10 on the Work Series. You know, Joel Hetrick, looking at him ride, being the talk of the fastest ATV rider to ever touch a four-wheeler. I mean, you know, how do you decide?
Exactly, I agree with that. I have my own biased opinions as well, you know, because you have to bring in multiple different disciplines. You know, most of the guys you spoke of are one-dimensional. They've ridden one style of racing their entire career.
Well,
Okay,
Gary Denton was he raced the
TTN motocross.
TTN motocross, yeah.
Okay,
Which is he's got to be, I mean, he's won 8 combined, right?
won 8 in a row.
Yep.
Nothing against Chad's 8, but he won 8 in a row.
Yep.
You know, and he won a Mickey Thompson title.
Yep.
We're gonna get Joe, and then we're gonna end it. Joe, don't give me the long version to here right now, okay?
Hey. You know, it was really working my way. I was like, okay, keep naming all these guys. Don't name my guy. Don't. And then you guys had to go and name my guy. I had two. And I think Denton is the obvious first choice. And the only reason because of that is, Weenan is a motocross racer. The guys that are dominating, Walker Fowler, over in cross country right now, he's obviously not winning, but with all of his championships, they're all cross country. Neil, same thing. Denton won TT, he won motocross, he won Mickey's. So as an all-around rider, looking for the on any Sunday kind of rider, like a Malcolm Smith who could go out and enter any kind of event, any given day and do well. I don't know that Gary ever did Woods, but Denton is definitely the standout to me as maybe the GOAT, because he did at least 3 disciplines and he won at all of them. And a lot of people would argue it, and the greatest, no, but great. I got to throw it out for Eichner too, because he won motocross championships. He won, he went over across the pond and raced Pondeville, which is more of a super TT than a motocross race. So, that's another guy who, as far as flat track motocross, has proven to be a winning, well-rounded rider. Maybe doesn't have as many titles and trophies as Denton, but I'd put him on my short list. But as far as the GOAT, probably Denton at this point. And I don't know that we're ever going to see anybody surpass that as far as doing it all or doing multiple sports and winning.
I'm going to disagree with you. I love Gary Denton. I think he's an amazing ambassador for the sport. I'm also very biased because I got to work hands-on with Doug Eichner. When you win 7 Pondevus, Baja titles, Best in the Desert titles, Works titles, you went back east and raced motocross and TT when it was motocross TT together, and you won titles in that series. He did not win the premier title, but he won in the open titles or classes. He won Golden State Series. So you're taking a guy that in his super long career with multiple different disciplines won at all of them. So you could definitely stack up Doug next to Gary for titles, because there's so many different ones.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But, and you don't want to take away from any of those other guys. They're phenomenal, and it's not fair to take anything away from Walker Fowler or Billy Balance or any of the other guys that have raced cross country that were so good. When you go back to Dean Sundell riding 3-wheelers and Marty Hart, so where do you cut it up? In the chat, everybody, please give us your opinions. Long form, short form, doesn't matter. Jacob Stevens, I thank you so much for getting up early and coming and joining us. Hopefully we'll have you back on. We'll be doing a race report with you in Works on September. Joe Tolle, it's always a pleasure to have you on. You have an amazing opinion, and I really like to listen to your theories. I hope everybody else enjoyed it. Everybody have an amazing Father's Day, and we will catch you on the morning show next Sunday.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for everybody for being a part of it, and see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Sorry the camera was dysfunctional, but happy Sunday morning.
All right, guys, have a great day. Thank you so much.